Hello and welcome to another vlog with your host Eamon Standing. It's another Pugley video. So we're just about should just be uploaded by now. Maybe will be within the by the end of the day, depending on when this gets released. Of Jefferson Pugley Roller Coaster Extraordinaire at puggleycomics.com, which can be read in the description. And if you loved Jefferson Pugley's Pyroclastic Hooverju, then it will be a massive thing for you to purchase a copy. But not forcing your hand. They're free to read for this year only, and as you can see, they're not archived, so get them while you can, reading wise. So today we are talking about where the art style for Jefferson Pugley came from. So you noticed that I had two previous comics, which were the Talisman Rogue and the Setting. So Talisman Rogue had a very, actually, it's a less realistic art style, very closely hatched, and there's a kind of an element in here of Pugley itself never shorthands the backgrounds, but you can see that I've shorthanded some backgrounds there where they're just kind of emphasizing a frame. There's a I always had my work compared kind of manga style, but it isn't, because if you actually look at manga style, it's not like that. And maybe slightly surprisingly, the setting style, which this is gonna be a bit difficult because it's a huge book. This is what the setting's drawn in. So it's but at this point only the pilot had come out. So there's the pilot for the Setting, slightly less hatched, more black and white. Like this is probably a bit closer to manga style, in terms of the amount of shading. But there's no shortcutted backgrounds in the Setting. Everything is very there. And that continued on with Pugley. I never shorthand backgrounds in Pugley, unless you count nighttime being black as shorthand, but it's usually you can still see lines in the background. But that's mainly a background thing, and obviously Pugley itself is starkly black and white. There's very little hatching. In fact, I think there's a tiny bit of hatching for a few lighting effect things, and a couple of little things in the later books which I just thought, I can't have them black, I can't have them white. They really are in the mid range of colour. So they are hatched, but they're very basically hatched. You'll also notice that Talisman Rogue is all drawn A5. Pugley is drawn at A4. Apart from in Talisman Rogue, there was an alternate art style for some of the war scenes. This were done in ink, a much more realistic style, and they were done at A4. But Pugley was A4 from the get go. There's the original Pugley. So yeah, there's some scenes of the end of Classic Hooverju. So you can see, compared to Talisman Rogue in the Setting, very black and white, and there's a reason for that. In that I wanted everything to be very clear in the Pugley books. In Talisman Rogue in the Setting, things can get a little bit lost in all that hatching sometime, and it doesn't really actually save that much time. Granted, with the first three Pugley books, there was some publisher interest, so there were time constraints for it. So you'll notice, if you've got a print copy, or later on, I think you can still probably notice, even when it's shrunk down on the computer screen, that there's the first three Pugley books are quite a bit rougher, and that's because they haven't been gone over digitally loads. But every copy of Pugley, every Pugley has an original copy, at A4 size, written in ink with the Uni-ball pen, and it's just this pen, and then the pencils and rulers and stuff. I just really like these Uni-ball books. What was I? But yes, there was it was much simpler in that time. But then with the second three Pugley books, they took a lot longer because I got a tablet screen, and so I would go over every line digitally, and really make them super super sharp, so that whatever size you had Pugley at, it always looked really really crisp, and it meant that I could do a lot more detail in the background that would sometimes get a little bit messed up on the scan. I could just clean it up. Um, where's a good example of that? A good example would actually be any nighttime scenes, because you're not drawing white lines. You're cutting out white lines. So like here's Jeff digging, and so you'd be able to I'd clean out all the white lines to make sure that they looked really sharp. So yes, it was quite a different experience drawing Pugley than Tasman Rogue or setting, and then of course with the characters, they took another different side. Of course, the setting in Tasman Rogue very very human based. Pugley's a dog. I'm not sure if I had drawn any dogs or anything in the other comics, but Pugley's actually quite simple because I just looked at lots of pictures of pugs, stylized it, and gave them a Y on their head. And I just knew from very very early on this is what Pugley looks like. And there's a couple of little extra things about him. So he has black feet and a black tail, which isn't very normal for pugs. And I did that because he's it's debatable whether he's supernatural or not, but I'm not going to discuss that here yet. And so I wanted to distinguish him from other pugs. Then another reason why it was so starkly black and white is I really wanted to emphasise the whole it's Pugley's view of the world. It's black and white. I know dogs don't technically see black and white apparently, but it's morally it's whether it's black and white. Is Alex happy? Is Alex not happy? That's basically it. And then with Alex, he took a bit more of a bit more realistic proportions than Tasman Rogue, and a bit more like the setting in terms of how realistic he was portrayed. Actually, the concept art, he's way more realistically portrayed than in the actual comic. I like being able to stretch their features and stuff to really get cartoony, but not to the same extent as Tasman Rogue, where I need that to detract from some of the more serious stuff in there. And in terms of character design for Alex as well, I just wanted him to look kind of it's a little bit based on a young Edward Norton in some ways, but like wanted him to look quite gaunt, desperate because of like what's going on. He's a graduate. Although he somehow has a house, but there must be some explanation for that in some kind of way. I don't know if he's renting or if he's got a dog. I mean, in the UK they're not very happy with pets and renting usually, but yeah, I just wanted him to look more realistic than Tasman Rogue, but I wanted to have a little bit of freedom to give him more cartoony expressions, and certainly in the second three books, as in the second trilogy, he does gain a lot more of the cartooniness. I think it's possibly to take away from some of the more seriousness of the situations in the second trilogy. But essentially, that's where the art style came from. It's kind of a stripped down, slightly more realistic version of Tasman Rogue with that stark black and white to really illustrate. Okay, this is Pugley's view of the world as right for Alex and wrong for Alex, and that's Jefferson Pugley, really, the art style. Thank you for reading and listening.